Jason and Emily arrived at the cabin just before sunset. The wooden cabin was small but cozy, nestled deep within the quiet woods. It was exactly the kind of peaceful retreat they had hoped for. Emily took a deep breath, soaking it all in. "This is perfect," she said with a smile, but that would soon fade. "Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories." They carried their bags inside. The cabin smelled like musky wood and old books, which added to its charm. A fireplace stood on the far wall with logs stacked beside it. Camping wasn't allowed here, so this quiet, simple place was the next best thing. Jason grinned, home for the weekend. After unpacking, they went exploring. The forest was peaceful, filled with birdsong and rustling leaves. A narrow trail led them to a lake, its surface smooth like glass. Emily took a picture. "I could stay here forever," she said. Jason laughed. "Let's see how you feel after a night in the woods." That joke would turn out more serious than expected. Their first night in the old cabin would be anything but peaceful. Back at the cabin, Jason lit the fireplace while Emily made dinner. Outside, the wind picked up and the trees began to creak. "It's going to be a cold night," Jason said, adding more wood. But the cold wasn't the real concern. Something strange happened after they returned from hanging clothes. The strange occurrences only got worse that night. They climbed into bed, listening to the forest sounds, owls hooting, wind howling. Jason fell asleep quickly, but Emily stayed awake, sure she heard soft footsteps on the porch. She held her breath as the steps circled the cabin, then stopped. Maybe it was an animal, she mocked herself softly. "City girl in the woods, get a grip," before finally drifting off to sleep. Suddenly, a loud thud jolted Emily awake. She sat up, heart pounding, as Jason stirred beside her. "What was that?" he mumbled. It went quiet for a moment, then came another thump, like something hitting the wall outside. "Probably a raccoon," Jason muttered, rolling over. Emily wasn't convinced. She got up and peeked through the window into the dark, swaying forest, but saw nothing unusual. Still, she locked the window just in case. Sleep came slowly, filled with whispering dreams and the eerie feeling of being watched. Once, she woke. Sure, someone stood at the bed's foot, but the room was empty. Jason wasn't spared from the strange events either. In the early hours of the morning, he woke up needing the bathroom. He tiptoed across the creaky wooden floor, careful not to wake Emily as she slept. But as he reached the bathroom door, he suddenly froze. He had the unsettling sensation that someone had just been inside the bathroom moments before he arrived. Jason stepped cautiously into the bathroom and turned toward the mirror above the sink. It was completely fogged up, so much so that he couldn't even see his own reflection. It looked exactly like someone had recently taken a long, hot shower. But that didn't make sense at all. The air was cold, and they hadn't used any hot water. They were alone, deep in the woods, miles away from anyone else. Jason did his best to ignore the feeling. After washing his hands, he rushed back to bed, shivering as he climbed under the covers. After a short and restless night, morning light streamed gently through the cabin's small windows. Birds chirped outside, filling the air with a hopeful melody that marked the start of a new day. Jason woke first, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Emily groaned and stretched beside him. They had made it through the night. Neither spoke about the strange noises. Maybe, they thought, it had all just been in their heads. Jason and Emily didn't yet realize it, but their adventure was far from finished. Jason and Emily pushed aside the tension that clung to them like fog. They were determined to make the most of the day. Together, they packed their hiking gear, water bottles, snacks, a flashlight, and a small first aid kit. They ate breakfast quickly, sitting side by side on the cabin's narrow porch. Neither wanted to bring up the strange events of the night. "Fresh start," Jason said at last, forcing a grin. Emily nodded, took a long breath, and looked toward the trail ahead. Once they had packed everything, Jason and Emily stepped off the porch, ready to explore. Emily adjusted her backpack straps, making sure everything was in place, while Jason double-checked the trail map. They planned to hike to a scenic overlook a few miles away. Before they left, Emily paused. "One last thing before we go," she said, pulling out their small camera. "Let's take a picture with the cabin, a memory." They positioned themselves in front of the cabin and smiled for the photo. Their expressions were relaxed but slightly forced, trying to pretend everything was normal. Emily held the camera up and took the picture. She expected to see a cozy image of the two of them with the cabin behind, but when she looked at the screen, her stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. Her expression changed the moment she saw the result. When they turned the camera screen and examined the image together, they both saw it immediately. In the open doorway of the cabin behind them, something strange caught their attention. A faint burst of light, small but clear, reflected in the darkness just inside. It looked like the flash of another camera, but that didn't make sense. It was exactly where no one else should have been. Their expressions changed from curious to alarmed. Emily's breath caught sharply in her throat. "Jason, look at this," she said, tapping her finger against the screen to point out the flash. Jason didn't need her to explain. He had already seen it, and his face had turned pale. His eyes were locked on the screen. "What the hell?" he whispered, disbelief in his voice. There was no one else out there. Or at least, there shouldn't have been. They were supposed to be alone in these woods. That's what made this discovery so impossible to explain. A second camera flash meant someone, maybe something, had been in the cabin at the exact moment they took their photo. Emily's hands trembled as she slowly zoomed in on the image. The thought of turning around to face the cabin door made her shiver. A silent fear gripped her as the moment sank in. This wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't a camera glitch or some reflection. The flash in the background was real. It was artificial and deliberate, which could only mean one terrifying thing: someone was inside the cabin, watching them, possibly photographing them. The cold truth settled like a stone in Emily's stomach. Her breathing turned shaky, eyes still locked on the screen. "Jason, what do we do?" she asked nervously. Jason turned toward the cabin with grim determination, wielding the selfie stick like a weapon. He entered cautiously, flashlight in hand, scanning the dark space. Emily remained outside, taking photos for any signs of movement. Inside, Jason noticed how cold the air felt. Something was off. The bathroom door, which he had closed that morning, now stood ajar. His heart pounded. Whoever had watched them might still be inside. Jason crept toward the bathroom, each step echoing in his ears. Just as he was about to nudge the door open, Emily's scream pierced the silence. He bolted outside to find her wide-eyed and trembling. "A man!" she gasped, pointing. "He ran from a hidden side door!" Jason scanned the trees but saw nothing. Emily held up the camera. She had caught the intruder in a photo, a grizzled man in a yellow coat. The man was gone, but the danger felt real. Jason and Emily re-entered the cabin, driven by fear and curiosity. They scanned the walls until they noticed a large cabinet near the kitchen sitting oddly. Together, they pushed it aside, revealing a hidden door, slightly open. Outside, the thick brush had concealed it entirely. "He escaped through here," Jason muttered. Determined to understand what was going on, they searched the cabin. Furniture was moved, spaces disturbed. "He was living here," Emily said. Jason nodded grimly. Back in the bathroom, the mirror had fogged up again. Finger-written words appeared. "This is my cabin. You are trespassers. Let me be or help me. For answers, come to the waterfall." It sent chills down their spines. Turning to leave, Jason noticed a misaligned washer and dryer in the corner. Suspicious, they pushed it aside. Beneath, they uncovered a hidden hatch. Inside was a crawlspace with a filthy mattress, food wrappers, and an old water bottle. "He's been here the whole time," Jason whispered. Beneath their feet, someone had lived in secret. They remembered the man's message. With quiet resolve, they decided to go to the waterfall. Still rattled, Jason and Emily packed their things and left the cabin. Jason studied the map, keeping them on track. Finally, the trail opened into a clearing. A jagged waterfall poured into a clear pool below. Then Emily noticed something, a narrow, dark gap behind the falling stream. Jason examined the opening. It was just large enough to enter. "Let's go," he said. Jason stepped into the rushing water. Emily followed, hands steadying herself. The entrance loomed wide and dark. Jason switched on his flashlight. The beam-lit stone walls stretching deep into the earth. Emily shivered. Their footsteps echoed. The cave narrowed, then opened into a wider corridor. They moved further inside, staying close. The passage curved and opened into a larger space. They paused, listening to the steady drip of water. Just then, movement stirred from the shadows. A rugged man stepped into the light. "Put the weapons away. I mean you no harm," he said calmly. His tone was steady, almost tired. Jason and Emily didn't lower their guard, but didn't move either. He slowly sat on a nearby boulder. "I'm Kevin," he said. "I never meant to scare anyone. That cabin, it was my mother's. She lost it, after my father tricked her during the divorce. He put a clause in the papers and took everything, especially the cabin. Kevin explained that his mother had fought to keep it, but after her death, his father began renting it out. Kevin had no legal power, only desperation. Scaring renters away became his only way of reclaiming what he'd lost. Jason and Emily listened silently as Kevin shared his grief. "No one believes the guy in the woods," he said, "but if people knew the truth—" Jason exchanged a glance with Emily. "I'm a journalist," he said. "If you have proof, I can help." Kevin's eyes lit up. "I have everything, records, letters, legal documents. I can show you." Emily gently touched his arm. "We believe you." They stood, no longer afraid. Kevin smiled faintly as Jason shook his hand. "Thank you," Kevin said, "for listening." They left the cave and followed Kevin through the woods to a small shed behind the cabin. Inside, Kevin retrieved a thick bundle of documents. Jason and Emily reviewed them. Everything Kevin had said checked out. "This is enough," Jason said. "We'll get the truth out." The next morning, they packed their bags and said goodbye to Kevin, knowing the cabin was finally in the right hands. Back in the city, Jason sat at his laptop and began writing. The exposé spread rapidly online, triggering outrage. The documents Kevin had provided exposed not just legal betrayal but fraud and tax evasion. Under pressure, Kevin's father relinquished his claim. Kevin regained his home and his mother's legacy. Justice had been served. Weeks later, Jason and Emily received a letter in the mail. Inside was a simple note. "Thank you. I'm home." Attached was a photo of Kevin standing in front of the cabin, smiling at peace. Jason and Emily smiled back, knowing they had done the right thing.